Sup Penanguses, this is DF Class 97 and welcome back to How to I.K.E.M.E.N. Sorry if the videos are inconsistent. I do have some content cooking up, just college and shit. But I got some stuff cooking up, and today's video we're going to talk about small tech. Now, I don't have an exact name. Let me just pull this down. I don't have an exact name to make this sound any better, but I'm calling it small tech. Now, this video is going to be based on three things. This is going to be very simple and very straightforward. Some of these might help you with how I.K.E.M.E.N works, and others, well, it could help you, I don't know. We're going to talk about three things. I'm probably going to do that with other videos too, because the last video, although very helpful, is very long, but it was talking about screen packs. So this one, yeah, I have a little small index card. So this episode, we're going to talk about small tech, which is based on three things: the zoom function, controls, and the lifebar/fonts. I also have other videos planned, like online stuff, basically how to teach how online works and what you could do with it, among other things that are related to NetPlay, and other things like Small Tech 2, which is about mode names, rosters, and stuff like that. This video is going to be simple and straightforward. So, what you're going to do is you're going to get your vanilla I.K.E.M.E.N. I already have them opened using WinRAR. Whatchamacallit. This is the latest version. We're just going to drag I.K.E.M.E.N over here. I'm just going to drag just a simple, ordinary I.K.E.M.E.N. I've also made a video tutorial about how to do screen packs and an idea on how to do screen packs. So I'll put a link in the description, and if I'm not lazy, I'll probably put an annotation. See, it always asking me. Stop asking me. You already know this. How many times have I opened I.K.E.M.E.N on you? Stop asking me this shit. Please. Oh my goodness. I also have other tutorials on the way. Like, I'm thinking about doing like how to play the game, my project, like for beginners. So because it is a competitive game. Let's open that. Hold on. Among other things. So yeah, let's do what I just failed at doing. All right. So we got I.K.E.M.E.N. You open it up. I just did that. Just to get rid of that warning, because that warning is so fucking annoying. Sorry about the mic adjustment. Ugh, shit. It's uncomfortable. Okay, so look, you got I.K.E.M.E.N. It's boring. It's holy shit. This looks lame. Alright. So let's just get down to it. Let's talk about the zoom function. So, if you remember last time, you go to your script folder and your main.lua. You want to open this with notepad or whatever thing you can open up. I recommend notepad. It's the basic shit. Now, we've already discussed... Look, it's already here. A lot of our shit already here. We've already discussed I apologize, on how this is basically your system.def Mugen config. This is basically everything you need. Like, this is a really big thing that you need to know. Okay, so here we go. We got this. This is it. Alrighty, here's the zoom thing. Now, to enable zoom, all you do is set from false and just type in true and save. That's that's pretty much it. It's fairly simple. So yeah, you want to enable it. Now, this is something that depends. This predates Mugen 1.1. Mugen 1.1 has this for sure. However, I.K.E.M.E.N. has had this invented like almost 4 to 5 years before even Mugen 1.1 was there. Hell, I could almost say maybe before Mugen 1.0 even existed. But it was very buggy at the time, and it still kind of has some bugs to it. However, however, they've been updating it ever since, and they're still updating this game. So, look, it works. Now, I'm going to show you the differences between zoom, with zoom and without zoom. To have it without zoom, just type in false and save. To have it with zoom, just type in true and save. Just save that. Now, let's show you the difference on how it looks. You can also adjust the, how big and small the zoom feature is. So if you're interested in getting zoom to work. Alright, let's disable the AI. See? Now, this is without zoom. You can see, I'm going to walk all the way in the back. The stage is still stationary on both sides. Now, let's put it on with zoom to show you the true difference. So, no pun intended. I said true as soon as I said true difference. Oh my god. No pun intended, though. Shoutouts to Rodney. Oh, man. Okay, so, let's go back to it. I chose random, it doesn't matter, it's not like I'm going to get any other characters. And let's back up a bit, and as you can see, let me move the mouse out. As you can see, there is a slight change in terms of how far the camera, as far as how the camera controls when you back away from the opponent. There's a slight tilt. You can you can see the stage is not that big to show the big difference, but you can see that it functions. Now I don't really mess with zoom too much because there are certain cases where zoom is kind of finicky, like and stuff. I don't really use zoom too much. Some people like zoom, some people like the effect, and I like it too. But some people also don't like it too much. Like some people think it gets like motion sickness and shit. So just test it out on your own and see how much it does. Now here's the things you can control. Zoom minimum, which is, I believe, how far the zoom will go out, meaning the zoom out, like how far it stretches, yeah, as you saw the effect. You can make it less or more. I believe if you make it less, you can make it stretch out more. Like I said, I don't mess with this too much. Zoom max is how close the camera will be to the character. So if you want it to be closer, you can make the number bigger. Like let's put this 1.2, and let's see the difference in the and how far and how close the characters will be. So yeah, I believe zoom minimum, zoom min means zoom in. You know, like how far it will stretch away. Well, it doesn't mean zoom in; it means zoom out, rather, if you want to get technical. And now zoom max means how close the zoom. So basically, zoom max means zooming in into the characters, making them look a little bit bigger, and zoom min means zoom out. Zoom in, zoom minimum means zooming out, how far it will go with the thing. As you can see, with zoom max, it's a little bit closer to the characters. You can manipulate the numbers and make them bigger or smaller depending on how you feel like it. So if we made this like 1.8, it will probably be up on the character's face cheek. It'll basically be like really zoom. So be careful what you do, but if you manipulate it, you can have some fun with the zoom feature. It doesn't matter really. See, as you can tell, it's a lot closer than original. You can see it's a lot closer. And if you stretch out, the effect still stays the same. But when you start to get in there, you can tell that there's a major difference. Now, let's say you want it to be zoomed out more. So let's say you want this smaller. So let's see how far it zooms out. If we just made it that, instead of 0.25, basically 25%, let's just make it 5%, 0.05. Watch it be really small. Alright. Let's see how far it stretches. Not too far. It also, oops, whoa, my bad. It also depends on how far you have the stage, because some stages have a specific, like, like how big and small they get. If you're gonna add zoom, I highly recommend you get specific stages for this. Best stages you want to get are ones with super jump or stages that are long. The reason I say this is that some stages have a glitch where if they stretch out, the background will also stretch out and it'll look like a mess. It'll look like you stretch the pixels and polygons of whatever stage you have in your background. So if you ever have a stage, I highly recommend one with super jump and or a big stretch, like it's a tall stage. But yeah, if you want a stage, I recommend super jump, and if you want one, you can also have super jump and a stretchy, like horizontal, like left and right thing. I'm not sure if it's horizontal. I believe it's horizontal, vertically and horizontally stretched. You have a small stage, the effect will kind of mess with your stage. For example, there's a stage I have which is based on 007 GoldenEye's first mission, and that stage with zoom is terrible. So make sure you get one with a super jump or at least a big good stretch of horizontally. So let's manipulate it. You can also manipulate it so that the maximum zoom itself is small. For example, instead of 1.0, just have it like 0.8, and it won't do that much of a close-up. It'll only be like that far into the close-up. So if you want the game to have more of a stretched, like zoomed out thing, if you want to see more of the stage, or if you have a game that's better if the camera's zoomed out, you can do that too. So instead of having it 1.0, hey look, a squirrel. If you instead of having it 1.0, you can have it like 0.8, and you can have the camera be a lot more out there, as you can see. See how the camera, and you can also see this black line here, which again is the border. Like the stage doesn't go too far up because the stage sprite isn't like the stage whatever doesn't like has super jump, but it only goes so far. So if you want a really good stage, I highly recommend one with better super jump, depending on your game. But also keep in mind that the stage isn't like super duper well, because there are certain cases where, for example, the helper, like for example, if your character's Ryu and they'll shoot out a projectile, and I've seen games that do this, and they need to keep that in mind. If your stage is really big and your zoom is really big, glitches will occur with a projectile. Like for example, let's say Kung Fu Man would throw like a fireball, and let's just pretend it would be the fireball. Some codes where the fireball will go through no problem. But there are times where the fireball, if you're zoomed out too far and the characters are stretched out too far, your fireball will only get up to here, or hell, just disappear before anything. I know a bunch of characters that do that. And it depends on either the projectile code and the helper code. And also, that's why I.K.E.M.E.N zooming is, although really good, don't stretch it out too far unless your characters are supported or something like that, because sometimes it glitches out. So check your characters. Also, sometimes they might go like a specific distance and they won't complete the entire area. But then there are some that work fine, so just keep that in mind. So you want to mess with the zoom. Here's one that's a really good tool. Here's a thing called zoom speed. I never really talked about this. Basically, let's have it so that let's have it zoomed in because it shows you the best. I'm just gonna have it 3 because it shows you the best thing. Zoom speed is where you can is the speed, obviously, in the zooming itself. So if it zooms in, you can have the zoom in be a lot faster. Like let's say instead of having it 1.0, you can have it like 5.0. It's going to be really fast. Like the zoom in and zoom out, it's going to be like faster. Again, test this out if you want to have like a really dramatic zoom or a slight zoom like I do with Revival. Revival has a zoom in and a zoom out, but it's very subtle. It's not too crazy. As you can see, the zooming is a lot faster, especially the zoom in, see? It's a lot faster. Or you can have it a lot slower and more ominous. For example, instead of having it 1.0 or 5.0, let's have it 0.6. You can have it more slower and more effect. But yeah, the zooming is a decent tool. Like I said, I use it for subtlety. I don't go too far with the zooming because of the some characters have stuff like that, like glitches with the projectiles and stuff like that. And not every stage has the best zoom. See, it's a lot more slower. Like, the zoom out is quick, depending on your person's stance, but in terms of a zooming, it's a lot more slower and dramatic, as you can see. The zoom out is pretty fast. I don't know if that's controllable, but the zoom speed, when it zooms in, is a lot slower and more, you can get a nice effect for it. So that's how zoom works. It's very simple. Now, let's just put this in default. Now we're going to talk about something fairly simple as well, is the... let's turn this off. Also, you don't have to necessarily make everything default. Just turn the zoom off and you'll be fine in case you don't want to change anything. Okay, so next thing we're going to talk about is controls. Also, I have a times controls. This is another one that's interesting. There are only very few I.K.E.M.E.Ns. I think there's only one that I've ever seen, which is a Naruto I.K.E.M.E.N, which has an option mode which can do controls for you, which is amazing programming. But sadly, not a lot of I.K.E.M.E.Ns have this. Hopefully I'll try to see if I can get it to work and stuff, since the Naruto game is open source. But anyways, whatchamacallit, not to get sidetracked. To do controls with a normal I.K.E.M.E.N, you have to go to an SSZ folder and look for config.ssz and open that with notepad. Now, all this text, this is basically your config section. Now, this is going to be important. Here you can do things like, I recommend not messing with this unless you know what you're doing. This is regular coding stuff. Now, you can also mess with the speed of the game. You can make it faster or slower. 60 frames, you want to keep it that way. You always want to keep it this way. It also has like stuff like where you want to read the files and shit. Now, what you want to focus on, there's actually another thing that's handy. I don't know if I talked about this in the Screenpack, but I might as well get it rid of here. The size of your game. Now, normally, you'd have to change your size. You can't change your size like this right here, where I can do like this. Even though it supports open SLG screen, whatever, I forget the name, but it's not necessarily too good. So if you want to mess with the size of your game window-wise, what you want to do is, it says constant width and height. This is basically the window of the game. This is a standard, so I recommend keeping it like this. But if you want to make it bigger, like widescreen, you can do something like this, like 1280 by 720. Might as well get this part over with in case I never talked about it in other videos. So just, let's say you want a widescreen, 1280 by 720, just change it here in the config and save it. And when you open up your game, it should open up as like a widescreen, like higher quality, slight format. So there you go. Let's put it back to 640 by 480. So yeah, you can do that. You can make it smaller, bigger, however you prefer. Especially if you're making screen packs for like a higher resolution or something like that, you can do that too. Now let's go over here. OpenGL. You can also make this true, but you really you don't have to mess with everything. Okay, now this is the important part. The keys. This is your area here. Again, to find it, you go to the SSC folder and look for config.ssz and just open it with Notepad. So this is where you want to start. It says keys in and it has in.mu0, all this shit. Now this is the your controls. This type of stuff here, ignore, but this is where you want to go to, where it says up. This is essentially your controls. To change your controls, let's say you want up. Instead of using the keyboard like up, down, left, and right, let's say you're a person that likes the WSAD. I can't stand that, but let's say you're that type. You can have up be W, and that's all you do. You keep this comma here, and you keep these wow, I can't believe I forgot those names. Double bullets. I'm sorry, I can't believe I forgot this. What this is. Anyways, you keep that and you keep the comma and you type in the letter or the key you want. So if you want it up or down, left, right with your keys, just press up in all caps and it has it down, left, right. If you want to change this, simply like let's say you want WSAD as your moving instead, you can do it like that. You can have up be W, down be S, have a left be A, and right would be like D. And this section here is your buttons for your attacks. The first three will be your kicks. You have your light kick, your medium kick, and your heavy kick. And over here you have your punches, your light punch, your medium punch, and your heavy punch. And over here you will have start. Of course, characters vary in case if they're like coded differently, like if they're a 3-button character. But this is basically your essential things. So if you already have WSAD, of course you got to change the punches. If you want your kicks to be a different button, I don't know. Let's make up Y. Like that would be a light kick. U would be your medium kick, and I could be your heavy kick instead of C. Now for punches, instead of ASD, because you're kind of using that for your thing here, change these to, I don't know, J, K, L or something. Now you can also do this with your, you can do this with any key. However, with number keys, it varies, because let's say, for example, I met a person, I remember a guy, shout out to Zerain, he used to play where he would have his, direction keys be his movement, and his attacks would be his number keys over here. 1, 2, 3, and not the numpad, but the part at the top. There is a way to do that. It's hard to remember because I really don't mess with that. Only one person I've ever seen mess with it. I don't remember. I believe I probably have code somewhere, but well, I don't know anyone's going to do that. But if you do plan on using numbers, I don't recommend it, since, let's say, for example, you want this to be like 1, like your number 1 key. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. It reads numbers differently. You got to do a specific thing for that. I'll probably make a separate video if I remember, and if people really want that explanation. Return is going to be your enter button, but let's say you want it to be like, I don't know, letter P or the key P. You can do that and save it, and your controls will be different now. That's how you do your controls. You can also add a unique thing about I.K.E.M.E.N is that you can add player 3, you can add player 2, player 3, and player 4 controls. This is the weirdest controls ever. I'm gonna, if you don't mind, of course, I'm gonna change it back. If you want like player 2, player 3, and player 4, to do this, you copy all of the thing here from where it says in.new all the way up to this part. You want to copy everything here. Press enter twice, make a little space, and paste it. And the thing you do is you change this number to a 1 and you save it. This basically means that player 1 is new 0, player 2 is new 1, player 3 will be new 2, and player 4 will be new 3. You can also add multiple more things to it, but obviously unless you want like 8 versus 8 laggy I.K.E.M.E.N match, I really don't suggest you do that. But if you want 4 different players, or at least a player 2 to play like locally with a friend, or if you're doing tag matches online, you can do that. So let's say you want 4 players here. Let's say you want player 3 and player 4. This also allows two, like instead of having like maybe 2 players sharing 2 characters, you can also do something wild like 4 people with 4 different controls playing the same time, which you can do offline. Online, I'm working on something like that for tag. So let's just run it down here. Just a reminder, new 0. This in.new.0. This is player 1. This is player 2. This is player 3, and this is player 4. And you do the same thing with the controls. Let's say you want player 2 to have the keyboard like up, down, left, right. You can do that. Also, this does support D-pad. You can, or not D-pad, I'm sorry. This also supports controllers. For example, if you have a pad or an arcade stick, like whatever, you can use that as well. Now, the way of using it, there's different methods. There's also there's actual code of using joystick, like for I.K.E.M.E.N. I.K.E.M.E.N does recognize joysticks. I'll put the code in the description if you want to use it. I don't use it because I don't play on controller, but there is an easier way to get it to work. And to do that, all you do is get a program like JoyToKey or XPadder, depending on your controller. I recommend JoyToKey. It's free and it's kind of easy to obtain. If you have XPadder or a way to get XPadder, you can use that too. And all you do is you basically, there's tons of tutorials out there. I'm just giving you the names of programs you can use. There's tons of tutorials for those. So you don't really have to look at here. Basically how to get your controller working with keyboard controls, which in my opinion is better the way to do it. But if you do want to use like actual joystick commands, in the description I will add a list. I'll probably add a picture of a code, because sometimes the description will be like, oh, you can't use these certain letters or whatever. So I'll have like a picture, a snapshot of what it would look like if you did, and you could just copy from the snapshot there. So anyways, let's say you want player 3 and player 4. Sometimes if you just want, like, let's say 4 players, but you want 2 people to share controls, so in case you're playing like a simul match and you want to control both characters, or if you're playing a tag match, you can do that and copy and paste. So you just do that, save it here. I did it so that player 1 and player 3 share the same controls, and player 2 and player 4 share the same. You can do it differently. Like, the best way to do it, if you have 4 people, like 4 friends, and you want to play 4-player, just insanity, if you want, you can do something like, for example, you can have it so that 2 players can share keyboard controls, and not necessarily use a keyboard. You can have 4 controls plugged up, and you can have 2 people using keyboard controls on their controller. Or you can have 2 people, and you can have the other 2 have their controllers using the control thing instead of this letter shit. Or you can have it a mix, so like one person uses a keyboard if they like it or whatever. Just, mix and match, and you can do that too in case you want 4 people. And that's how you do controls, and that's how you add controls for player 1, 2, 3, and 4. I believe you can do things like player 5 and 6 if you're planning on doing some other shit. But we're not going to go there, obviously, because why would you? But that's if you want. But hey, food for thought in case you ever want to do those things. I had a person in the comments wanting to try 4-player stuff. Got it to work for him, and I'm glad he does that. So, last thing we're going to do is LIFEBARS. And how long have we been recording? Fuck, 23 minutes. Okay, I'm sorry for taking your time. I'll make a timestamp. Now, for LIFEBARS and fonts, in case you don't like those old riggedy-ass LIFEBARS, which are in the data folder, by the way, let's teach you how to do the LIFEBARS and fonts. Now, this is something you might have to keep in mind if you're planning on using LIFEBARS and fonts. For now, LIFEBARS and fonts are usually only supported by things from Mugen or Mugen Plus, or things with lower quality like 320 by 240 LIFEBARS. For fonts, they're only supported by Mugen, as far as I know. You can probably get other fonts to work. Like, there was some guy who did like add004 fonts and shit, but you'd have to make them smaller, whether quality-wise or whatever, because they might be too big for the game itself. Because remember, I.K.E.M.E.N is a Mugen Plus mod with Mugen 1.0 and 1.1 working things. Like, that's why Mugen 1.0 characters work on this, which is amazing, and some Mugen 1.1 shit. but it's highly recommended just to getting life bars and fonts from M.U.G.E.N. If you do have like Mugen 1.0 or whatever life bars, if there's a person that's willing to do a patch so that it works for like like lower resolution, which are available, or if you know how to do it yourself, you can also resize the sprites. But you know, there's tons of M.U.G.E.N life bars that work. Okay, so here's what it is. I'm using, as an example, I'm just going to use this Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter life bars I found on the archive. So what you do is you extract your life bars. If you want, you can make like a separate folder. Let's just make this MK versus Street Fighter. Let's make that just a random folder. If the life bar already comes in a folder, then use that. And make sure your life bar works, and just drag and drop everything here. Like whether it's a new life bar or whatever, just drag and drop, make a folder, or if it has a folder, just put the folder in there instead. Alright, so reason this, Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter. Now, to do this is fairly simple. You open up your main.lua, which I closed it, but just to show you where it is, script, main.lua, make sure you open it with notepad. Same area we're working for with the zooming. So now you go to your data folder. You can really put this anywhere, but if you want to make it easier and so anyone could do this, I recommend putting it in the data folder, since the data folder in I.K.E.M.E.N is recognized as for life bars instead of, well, in Mugen, where the data folder is basically everything. Have your life bar here and your font. Now, over here, load life bar. This is basically the life bar itself. So it would come out like this, data, which this basically means the data folder, which we are in now. This folder, which is the old life bar, and the def file, which is, well, the definition of the life bar. So what you do is, let's show you what it looks like. This is the life bar, and this is the fight.def. Now, if you want to change that, you can do that. So instead of have data, and change this folder, instead of it being this, the GMS folder, change that to MK, or whatever your folder of your new life bar is. I renamed it MKVSF, means Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter. And have the fight.def. If it has any other name, .def. If it has a definition file, use that, but a lot of life bars, if not maybe every life bar, has this. It just follows the fight.def. So just have it like that and save it, and that's it. Debug font, if you want to change this for like your debug and whatever, you don't really have to, but in case you delete this all the way, just replace the font with something else, any font. How about name font dot font? Like, what, in case you deleted the life bar or you really want to change this font, you can have it like that, data, NK versus SF, and wherever your fonts are. Some life bars have its own folder where it has just a folder font. You can go there too. But anything .fnt, which is a font, you use those. So let's just have this, I don't know, power, whatever font you want for this case. Just have it power. How many R's is that? There's 1, 2, there's 4 R's. Oh my god, how powerful. Whatever, I'm sorry. Now, this isn't the font for the game itself. To find that, you go below here, right down here. Now this is where it reads all the stuff like the system.sff. This is like for screen packs and the sound effects. But what you want to focus is here if you just want the font for your game. Again, it's reading the fonts from the old life bars. If you want to replace it, you can use any font. Highly recommended with M.U.G.E.N unless you can convert like a M.U.G.E.N 1.0 font or whatever and make it smaller and lower resolution. Let's change the data. Keep the data there. Change it to whatever folder your font is in. Like that. You can also make your own font folder, really, like out here, like a normal M.U.G.E.N, but that's in your own time. So you can have it like that, and have this, change this to, like, I don't know, this is going to be your main menu font, and the font that a lot of games are. You can also edit it so that you can have multiple fonts supported instead of one, so instead of S, you can have, like, JG font. You can have, like, JG font 2, but you have to change that. I'll probably do a video on that eventually in, like, advanced tech or whatever. Change this to something else. Let's change it to, there's a bunch of fonts here. Let's just change it to the M.K.E.M.E.N font, whatever. Also, you don't have to be like me, what I just did. You could just go to, like, anything here. It's the easiest way. You just right-click, go to rename, right-click on that, go to copy, and you can just paste the name here. There you go, and save it. That's pretty much it. So when we open the game, it should have new looking fonts, and it should have a new life bar. So yeah, let's open up the game and see if it actually did what I wanted it to do. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. Some Japanese bullshit. Okay, so it's an error. Let me just look at that again. Hold on. This is live. Let's see here. Let's open it up and see where exactly the error is located. My battery's dying. I gotta charge this shit. Let me put the charger on. Oh, okay, I see. Excuse me, give me a second. I'm gonna plug the charger in. Okay. I believe yeah, it's, alright, cool. Some games, some lifebars, main.lua data, fight.def, combo 1. Excuse me. Okay, so I think I just, I think I did something wrong here. Some lifebars have, like, let's see. Ah, I see. Okay, so yeah, some lifebars, like some lifebars are packaged correctly in terms of their fight.def. So if your lifebar comes out like this, where it gives you an error, I believe that's because, well, you didn't place the lifebars in a specific area the def wanted. If you did it like me, where you had everything here, this is fine. All you can do is, like, let's say for example I have the fonts inside the same folder instead of its own. You can do something. You could just like get rid of it, get rid of the data. I believe it should work. It wasn't I.K.E.M.E.N's fault. It was actually the definition. The way the definition was named and where I put the things in the definition, I put them in the spot that the def said it didn't want. You can just change that, or you can follow what the definition said. And there you go. You got fonts. Oh, I forgot. I changed my controls to this wonky shit. So yeah, you can also do, I'll do that in another video where you can change the size of these things. Not just the font, but actually the letter itself. So let's just go here. You can also have different fonts supported for different parts of the menu. I'll do another video on that. And there you go. You got new life bars. Let's beat this motherfucker up and look at that. Look at that drain. So yeah, you can do that, and that's basically it. How to add life bars to your I.K.E.M.E.N. Basic stuff. If you do plan on using Mugen 1.0 life bars or whatever, there should be a patch or... Ooh, that's scary. There should be like patches, or if you know what you're doing, you can make it support for like Mugen or lower resolution. This is a Mugen life bar, which is why I don't have to do any editing for it. It was a random life bar I had around. You can edit stuff too in case your life bar doesn't look whatever. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to have videos on other stuff too. Hope this was informative. This is, again, basic stuff, so if you already know about this, you don't have to check it out. But in future videos, I'll talk about things like how online works and more advanced stuff for I.K.E.M.E.N. I have a lot of things. In the description, I have a bunch of shit that I made with using I.K.E.M.E.N. if you want to use them as examples or if you want to play them, like Revival and some other stuff. Hope you enjoyed this video. Peace out and subscribe, Pendinguses.